Hey everyone, welcome to Ask Don't Tell. The best salespeople, the best entrepreneurs, the best business people care about what they're doing. They care about who they're selling to. They care about their audience. They care about their clients, their customers, and just human beings. And they actually show it. Every week, I try to bring you really good people that show you how to be world class at sales, business, life without being a jerk. And today's guest is Kevin. Let me see if I get Hubschmann. Is that correct, Kevin? All
Whoa, let's
right.
go.
Founder of Laugh Events. He's built a business that takes laughter seriously, delivering curated comedy to corporations around the world. He's going to dumb that down for us, I'm sure. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Oscar. Happy to be here.
Thank you. All right. So when I'm kind of doing the research, I mean, you really what you kind of promote is laughter as a service, right? So take us a little bit more further into, why do people come for you for help? What is the help that you're providing to businesses and corporations?
Yeah, so we provide comedy services for corporate audiences. And, the reason that we also do after work comedy shows for people that are looking for stuff to do after work. That can be fun. But the reason that we are so interested in the corporate side of things is that there is such an opportunity for people to inject humor a bit more into the workplace, to use comedy skills as professional development skills when they're talking with clients or prospects. And I started my career as a software salesperson, enterprise software salesperson at this company called Splash. And I was the first salesperson there. And, I was there for about 7 years, helped grow that team. They ended up getting sold last year, which was a nice cherry on top of everything. But while I was starting my career there, I was also doing improv comedy after work. And so I would go and I would do about 3 hours a week with my two brothers and my best friend. We started a group called the Brothers in Flaws, and we just decided to do improv and then after work, do improv after work with an instructor. And then the next day, I started just to feel everything was a little bit slower. I was listening better. I was in a better mood, sure, but like my skills were just a little bit more enhanced, and my talk time went down on my calls. And I was just being a much better professional. And that was my first inkling of being like, okay, comedy's amazing. I love comedy, but this has a utility in the professional world that I would really love to continue to explore. So sure, we do a lot of excellent comedy entertainment for corporate events, and that's always something that is really fun. The other thing that's actually developing a lot more ROI for people is something we call laughing in development. And it's using comedy skills that we can learn from applied improv and stand-up comedians, to using that in the professional world to close more deals, make
Okay.
more product, innovate, stuff like that.
All right. Well, let me take you back for a second with something you said. So you're ultimately, I mean, you are obviously most people that are able to build some sort of business from some sort of idea is because they have some sort of experience in sales. You come or you were in the sales world before you created Laugh, basically, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And and then I heard you say, well, you were doing improv, but the improv helped you become a better salesperson. So tell me a little bit more why that was, because you mentioned certain skills. Was that because as a comedian, you were listening more or more attentive kind of to what the audience was giving you? And so instead of, so in theory, you're like, okay, a comedian's going to be talking, but what you're saying is actually, no, it was the opposite. I was actually listening or more aware. Was it that? Or was it just kind of the laughter part that put you in a better mood and an environment? And then you went to work the next day as a salesperson. And because you had joy in your life, it just made you about. So tell us a little bit about that connection of, hey, I was a comedian. Maybe I was terrible. Maybe I was great. I don't know. You'll have to answer that. And that helped me with skills. But I want to know what those specific skills kind of were.
Yeah, so I'll start by differentiating between improv comedy performing improv training, and then stand-up comedy. So when you're talking about stand-up comedy and you're talking about improv comedy as a performance, yeah, it's you and the audience. And so that is the relationship that you're having. What I was doing was more on in the early parts of my career. I eventually was going, once I was trained, I was going more into the audience relationship and things like that. But when I was starting my improv training, you're doing it with just the people in the room. So I said my two brothers and my best friend. And so you're working with, in this experience, it was four people. You're working with these four people and you have to figure out ways to collaborate and work with each other. And a lot of that has to do with listening to your scene partner and listening to like, where do they want to take a scene, or what is the action that they are going to take that I am not going to stop it. I'm going to collaborate. You hear in improv a lot, yes, and that's like the whole, mantra of improv is like, how do I build on somebody's idea and keep going with it? And also when it comes to improv, being hyper curious is extremely important. Hey, why did they make that decision? Why are you doing that? And you're asking questions that can bring the scene forward. And another thing that I learned too, because I was always like, oh, I want to be funny when I'm doing improv. That's actually not the goal when you're doing improv training. And if you go into that going, I'm going to be funny, I'm going to make a joke, you're going to get a laugh, but it's going to be a laugh that derails the whole scene as itself. So another thing that I learned was a mantra that I love to hear, which is F your good idea. And it's this idea of like, hey, you might think you got something good and you want to share it. Pause on that for a second because someone else is talking and they have the floor. And how can you actively listen to them to either incorporate what you wanted to say or flush your idea away or stow it even away, and let's build on what we have in front of us, and let's be hyper curious in that moment, and let's build something together. So all of those different things, as you can expect, they translated over into like every one of my sales calls and every time I was talking with a prospect. And then there was this really aha moment that I had too, where me doing this, you mentioned like, hey, I'm laughing more, I'm having more fun. Yes. But I was also starting to get more out of my shell. I developed like this 9-to-5 personality when I was at work, and I was this person and this is who I wanted to be and I'm professional. So when I started to get more into comedy, whether that was improv or stand-up comedy, I started to see that shell kind of fall away. And the wake-up call that I had was when my manager heard me on a call and he said, hey, I know what you're like outside of work. You're a fun guy. I need you to stop being so salesman, and I need you to start being more Hubschmann. And that was such a great mantra that I always tell myself. And it's about showing up authentically, not being worried about how you're going to perform or fail or do anything like that. So all of these different skills that I learned on the stage or in the training centers really allowed me to take that back into the workplace and apply it throughout. And I always like to say it was like Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. I'm like, why am I doing this stuff? And then suddenly the next day I was applying all of it and it was really effective.
So you just mentioned so many important, and we can take this just on like, because you were doing sales, and we can say, okay, this is how it's going to help salespeople. But in theory, this can help anyone because you're training corporations. And well, I believe if you heard the show that everyone at some point somehow is a salesperson because you just need to have those skills to be successful in life. So we're just talking to people in general. But you mentioned so many great traits that I want to make sure that we don't lose. Mm-hmm. Because when you were doing the improv, look at some of the things that you said, right? Okay, so you're in a room and you're with 3 or 4 people. I mean, that in theory, that could be a board. That could be a team. That could be a meeting. That could be a Zoom meeting. That could be you collaborating with, you doing a presentation. But listen to some of the things you said. It wasn't, you're trying to figure out what they're doing and thinking, what their next move is. And in the world of sales, it isn't about talking. It's about trying to think internally, what do these people want? What's their next step? What's their next move? And so I can see how that was so valuable carrying it over because ultimately it isn't about talking, it's about trying to figure out what's the value on the other side. So one of the things that really, I like what you said, is like, okay, sometimes you have that inside voice, right? And that inside voice says, I got to say this. But really, you got to stop that inside voice and say, okay, if I say this, what will happen? Maybe I need to ask a question first. And it's kind of like playing chess, right? And so it all boiled down to, you kind of figured out, what does this group need? How do you collaborate with that group to give them the value of what they're looking for? Not only your team, but the audience. But you're describing sales 101, teamwork 101, leader to team member 101. I mean, in the world of ask, don't tell, it's let's figure out what the other end needs, give it to them to connect with them, which is what you were doing, which I think is brilliant. Now you've taken it into the corporate world. So here's my next question for you. How is this solution different? So, because in a way, you created a reason for people to help people, right? So you're going to help people, whether it be salespeople or just business leaders, get better through comedy or improv or whatever it may be. There's so many solutions out there for team building, right? So let's get in a little bit about the psychology of laughter, and what some of the things that you're talking about is like, why this solution? Why not, just a normal team building? Why not just, hey, let's take them on a retreat somehow? Like, how is this solution that you're providing? Why would a company choose this solution as opposed to other solutions they could do to build and help their team?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that we get all the time, as you can imagine. And it really comes in the form of, in this experience, you can have your cake and eat it too. And I think that is what people, when they're looking for like a team building activity or something where they can connect with everybody, they're like, let's go super fun, murder mystery, booze cruise, open bar, like whatever, even a comedy show,
Right.
like whatever it might be. And, that's still really great and really fun. But what is the camaraderie that can be created from doing a shared experience with one another? And so if we just dive deep into the basics of the biology of what's happening when you laugh, because we call it laughing and development, because it is learning and development, but these applied improv skills, if you're doing the games correctly, which everyone does, the natural effect is laughter. And so laughter happens very organically, and you're not even trying to do it. So what happens when you laugh? When you laugh, you get a flood of endorphins. So you're feeling really great. Those feel-good hormones are coursing through you. Then your cortisol levels also drop. So you're getting that lower stress. And then my favorite part is that you're also releasing oxytocin. You're getting that hormone is activated too. So you're getting this social bond with one another. And another aspect is when you laugh, there is science to back this up. When you laugh, you are learning when you laugh. It's like a mile marker that you're having. And you're saying, I will remember facts more when I associate them with a laugh. So that's another thing that's important, because what we're doing, like I said, wax on, wax off type of thing. You're like, why am I washing this car? And then suddenly, Mr. Miyagi was right the whole time, and you're kicking Johnny's butt on the Halloween dance night or whenever he got his revenge. So the idea is like, okay, we're creating this opportunity for people to do really fun things, and then they have this really great takeaway of like, oh, and this is why it's applicable. So it's like taking the very fun activity, and then as all the things that I've just said to you, you can weave a game that seemingly doesn't seem like it has nothing to do with work, and you can relate those skills back to a client call, a discovery call, a demo, gathering decision makers, whatever it might be. Those are all applicable, and that is what we really try to focus on, is like, hey, we're going to deliver these really fun games and exercises, but let's make sure to debrief so you know exactly why we were doing that. And we're tailoring it around to whatever the folks really are looking for. If it's like, hey, we want heavy goofiness, heavy silliness, we want to be on like the moon, Or we want this to be a really dialed in professional. So it's a range of what they're looking for, but we always make sure everyone's having their vegetables too.
All right. So it kind of, one of the things that you stood out to me earlier, you said, and kind of connecting it back to this is if you go out and say, I'm going to try to make people laugh, like like that's the goal, you might not make them laugh. Like it's like you're starting out with something kind of like saying, my goal is to make a sale.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say my goal is to make a sale, you actually might not make the sale because you're forcing the sale and not the process of the sale. The sale is the outcome of a very good process, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
good scripting, good discovery, good connection, good benefits, good overcoming objections, that brings the sale. Here you're saying is comedy laughter is a solution for training and the outcome that the company wants, but it isn't like you said, you could have a comedian go up there, you could have a booze cruise, they're going to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
You could have different things where somebody's being kind of they're being entertained, but they're not part of the show. Like they're not part of the experience. And so what I kind of heard from you there is what you're doing isn't necessarily entertainment. Like they're not hiring you to say, hey, book me a comedian. Like you don't have like a list of 50 comedians. Oh, yeah, here's this guy. You're creating a solution that puts the employees or the team members, whatever you want to call them, into an actual experience that because there is laughter caused by them, then that produces a specific result, which is obviously, the training or whatever that company wants to get out of it. Which I think is fascinating because your solution is putting them into the equation. So again, it's not like, hey, I have to make a sale. It's like, if we take this process, they can learn better. So take me through a couple examples, because this is new to me. Give me a couple examples of you can choose you don't have to say the company, but this company hired us for this. And this is an example of some of the games or the exercises that we would do. And again, is it mostly for salespeople or is it just teams in general?
Yeah, so we do what you're saying. That is another side of our business. It's the entertainment side of things. And that's like, hey, we want to hire a comedian and we want to do it for a corporate event. It's holiday party season. So, our phone's ringing off the hook. So that's a need that we solve.
So that is a solution. Okay, good.
That is a solution that we have. Like if you want to have a really good MC or a host that's going to be humor and funny, or if you're just looking for like just a hilarious outing to fill that need, like don't get me wrong, that's a part of our business. I love it. But if the reason that's how we started our business, but the reason that we decided to expand further and focus on laughing and development is because those times come around but once or twice a year for that entertainment and that release, which I think is wrong. I think people should do it more often. And so how I felt that we could get that involved more is focusing on the return on investment that people could get when you put it through a training lens. And like you said, not audience and comedian, it's just a room. People always ask, what do you need to do these events? Like we got AV, we have a microphone, and we have a stage, and we have we can hook up to the TV. I go, we need a empty room and 5 chairs. And that's all that we need, and just show up. And so that is kind of also a great level setter of like, that's just what you need to get it going. So to talk about what you said, like what are examples of games?
Let me stop you there. Let me stop you there because there's something here that you just hit on and I thought was fascinating. And then we'll get to that, but I don't want to lose that. So, one of the whys of why laugh, and I love this because you call it laugh.events, right? What the name of the company is laugh. Okay. So why laugh? You said, okay, well, because if you just need someone to book you a comedian, we'll do that. I mean, those are low hanging fruits for you, right? Everyone during certain times of the year. I mean, I'm sure it's a great way to make revenue, quick revenue, but they're really hiring you for, okay, how much is it going to cost? Okay, 15,000. There you go. But
and
there's really, but it's not really. If we attribute it to the sales world, it's like a transactional sale, right? It is just a
Exactly. Yeah.
transaction. But if we attribute it to, mission solution selling, long sales cycle selling, hey, you might have a client today that you book something for that might ask for a full on training 3 years from now, right?
Mhm.
And that training is actually not the equivalent of a transactional sale, but it's the equivalent of a long sales cycle to get there, probably.
Mhm.
But also, it's the equivalent of actually building a relationship. So that helps us make the distinction of, sometimes, yeah, you're doing quick transactional sales, but even in your world, Kevin, you're doing those long sales cycles that you have to build a deep relationship
Mhm.
to be able to get to that level of training, which I'm sure is your highest income producing, highest revenue when you go in there. But you
Yeah.
said something, yeah. So, but you said something else that I want to hit on. It's only for, when they ask you, what do you need? You just say, I just need a room. So let's bring us back to sales. Like some people think in the sales world, I need a bunch of
Mhm.
props, right? You don't need AV, you don't need the PowerPoint, you don't need the 10 people in a business suit with stacks of presentations. Like you don't need props. In a really good salesperson, yes, you need some information, but in really, what do you actually need? You said it beautifully. You need a room, you need to show up, you need to connect, and that is actually what creates the opportunity. But it's the same thing in sales. If you go in there and talk with all your presentations, those are props. You know what?
Mhm.
Honestly, really good salespeople, all they need is someone else in the room to have a great conversation, connect, listen, everything else that you just said before. Listening, stopping, talking, read the room, figure that is what creates an amazing connection. So I didn't want to lose that
Mhm.
because what you're doing is so important to the skills of sales and of building businesses. All right. So now I stopped you there. Now give me an example now.
Well, I will say to your prop, I love me some Carrot Top, so don't knock the props. Um,
All right.
but yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and I think those are all really awesome points. And talking about the types of games that we do and experiences that we do, again, it comes down to like, what do you want to focus on? And so we do this like pre-event evaluation. And I want to jump on what you said earlier because I do think it's valuable, because you're like, is this just for salespeople? No, it's the most easy applicable thing to do because you can measure the success of it in revenue, and that's something I obviously am gravitate to, and my experience is in sales, but my experience is also in enterprise software sales. It's building that business use case, and sometimes when I was at Splash, I could only sell one seat. And I could sell one seat and I could sell it for $10,000. And that was the minimum. I even maybe discounted it down half because I knew there was really good potential. But if I could like really focus on that individual, I was building a champion. And that's really what I also take into this business is how can I focus not on going right to the CEO, right to the, even the VP. How can I focus on building champions internally so that I'm really working to say, let's just make you look awesome and let's make this an absolute rock star experience, because one of two things are going to happen. One, they're going to love it. They're going to recommend it to someone else on their team. Suddenly it's sales, now it's marketing, now it's engineering, now it's product. Now there's value throughout the business, and now I can make my business use case to make this a enterprise offering that's in the budget every single year. Or the second thing happens, they just take you with you to another company. And because you made them look good, they're taking you with you to another company, and now suddenly you're at a company you didn't expect to be at,
Right.
and they maybe get your message even better. So I'm taking those same things and I'm saying, let's, like you said, let's not focus on the bells and the whistles. Let's deliver something that's going to have people thanking you after the event. And you, again, look at how do I make these people I'm working with look like rock stars?
Right. Well, I mean, your experience in software sales. Obviously, mission, solution driven, longer sales cycle. I don't know how transactional that world was. We don't have to get into it. But at the end of it, most software sales, if you have one seat, you're trying to find, the right solution for a specific buyer. So I mean, you come from that world in a way.
Mhm.
And in order for you to be successful in what you're doing now, again, it's solution sales. You're
Yeah.
finding the solution for the client. Does it surprise you, or what's the expectation that people think when, because ultimately for you to do what you do, I mean, successfully, I'm not talking about the transactional, hey, book me. I'm talking about, hey, go into our company,
Yeah.
help us out, create real change, real impact, real culture, increase our sales or whatever it may be. And then that creates an impact and they take you somewhere. So that is solution sales, right?
Yeah.
Does it surprise people, or how do you get past all right, he's here, and because it's called Laugh Dot Events, we're expecting this guy just like I am that's going to be kind of this clown who's going to make me laugh. He's going to start talking, he's going to blah, 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 blah. And it's not like that. It's actually Kevin, because asking questions is actually Kevin doing deep discovery. And it's Kevin asking questions like I would imagine, like, so what's your biggest challenge?
Yeah.
What is it that you're looking for? What would a victory look like? Ultimately, what's the goal that you're looking? And they're like, wait, isn't this guy supposed to be making me laugh? Isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with that? And how do you deal with that would be the first thing. But also, you're going to deep discovery. So what are some of the questions that you're asking when you're going into the companies and actually digging deep?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple ways to go about this. I think sometimes people are surprised at like how deep discovery I'm trying to get, and they're like, because it comes in the form of the lead. How did the lead come through? Is it coming
Right.
through in like our marketing funnels and bottom of the funnel, and they're like ready to buy? Like some people come in and they're like, I'm looking for an improv workshop. I heard you can do it. Just like I'm looking for a comedian. I need to book them. That sale is kind of easy, and they might be looking for pricing, and they're just comparing your pricing against other people's pricing and like proximity. Suddenly, like all of those factors are out of your control, which is no different than the obstacles that I would run into when I was at Splash. It would be like, Splash's competitor was like Eventbrite, and it was like, hey, we're comparing Eventbrite to Splash, or Splash to Cvent, or Splash to, Swoogo, or whatever was out there. And so I felt that my deep discovery, whether it was like 15 minutes, and I got better at like, and that's why stand-up comedy helped me too. I got so much better at my economy of words and saying like, I don't need 30 minutes or I don't need 60 minutes. I need 15 minutes, and I'm going to work on asking the right questions, but I'm going to work on listening to you after I ask those right questions. And I'm going to create something that is way better than what you were thinking about. And I'm going to go above and beyond in making this business case. So it's not just a problem that we're solving now. It's a problem that is going to maybe fix a larger wound that was there the whole time. And so I think it really depends on like, how is the lead coming through when they have that expectation, they want to buy, don't lose that, if the fish is on the reel, bring it in and don't overcomplicate it. But at the same time, like, how do you make an opportunity to be like, yeah, like we're going to make this connection. I'm going to give you good content that's going to allow you to bring this back, and let's make this a business relationship. And that's actually always what I say. You're coming to us for this event. I'm going to make sure it's awesome. But my goal is to work with you again and again and again.
Right.
And I think when I also established that, they understand what I'm looking for in the relationship. And I'm not just looking for their credit card. I'm looking to develop a relationship in which I understand their problems. And I'll say it again, making them look really good in the process.
So what I love about, I mean, you could have written a whole book with everything you just said, obviously, because I mean, you basically just described really powerful consultative sales
Mm-hmm.
in 2 minutes. And I don't want to lose that, because Kevin is, if you're listening to this show, like Kevin isn't just some dude who's selling, he's at the bottom of the pipeline and learning to sell, right? I mean, this is a guy that's been in solution sales, software sales, a very successful company. Now he's the CEO and has built up a company. You know why? It isn't because he's the smartest guy in the room. It isn't because he's the prettiest guy in the room. It is, at the end of the day, none of that matters. Maybe you are. But
I'm just
ultimately, it's
kidding.
because he understands. Look what he said. I mean, he's just going in and he's not pitching what he's doing. He's actually, and in any sales environment, in any life environment, whatever you're doing, he said it like 3 times, he's doing deep discovery. And in that deep discovery, he's finding out what the other person needs, building a relationship. And then it's not about him. It's not about tell. It's about ask, find out what they want. And then when he figures it out, what it is that they need and what those buttons are, then he tells, I'm sure, in his own little pitch and how he does it. But he's a pro. And that's what this show is all about. I mean, finding how the pros do it, and you're listening to Kevin do it. And he literally took you through his little process, but his process was not based on talking, even though he was saying it. It was based on deep, deep discovery. And I love that because all the pros that I have in here will literally say something very similar, right? And I think that's a big thing for our listeners to the show, saying, hey, man, if you're over talking, if you're pitching, if you're telling, you're not being as successful as the people on this show. All right. So with that said, tell me a little bit about because I think we're having a great conversation. I'm going to take this a couple more minutes because I'm having a great conversation here. So tell me what are some of the biggest objections that you get? I mean, Kevin, that was great, but Kevin, that was great, but Kevin, really like you, but I mean, because ultimately, Kevin, you are selling. You are selling laughter as a service. At the end of the day, it's a sale. What are some of the biggest objections you get? Because you're a pro, so I want our audience to hear from the pros. What are some of the biggest objections you get?
So the biggest objection I have gotten was, oh my gosh, so I'm selling one person, right? I'm selling to one person. I'm talking to Oscar. I'm getting you stoked. You're revved up. You're like, man, I see it. I see the vision. I see where this is going. Like, and I'm like, I've got Oscar. We're good to go. Like, he believes in what I'm trying to offer him. I might as well mark this as closed won, payment to be collected soon. But then what happens is that, and this what used to happen is that people will go and they will try to, they say, we're going to take this to a vote on Slack. And so I'm like, oh no, and so I'm like, okay, I'm not able to make that connection with Oscar. So, I mean, that's for certain sales. That's like my biggest objection that I had to overcome. And I'll talk about how I did it. But it was that you were going improv. That's what I'm going to dial down what Kevin says. It's improv by laughed out events. And that's what we're doing. And so that was next to like Booze Cruise and Murder Mystery and like Segway Tour and like all this stuff where I'm like, that's not even the category that we're trying to be in. So that was like one of my first big objections that I was facing early on, which was like they were categorizing us in the wrong area. And it wasn't their fault. It was my fault. It was my fault because I was presenting it as improv like everyone else would. They were just looking for improv. So I then said, rebrand. We have to change how we're considering this. We also have to change what budget this is coming from. And the words that I'm using have that opportunity to do it. So I said, company rule, we're not allowed to use the word improv anymore when we're saying the title of what it is and what we're explaining. You only talk about it as laughing and development. You explain what it is, what it's not, but you talk about it as laughing and development. And so where did that L&D goes into? That goes into learning, training, development. That goes into a whole separate budget. And so that also opens up your budget opportunities. That opens up that you're not comparing it to fun. You know what I mean? Like there's a time for fun and there's a time for training, and there's always more time for training than there is for fun. And although I was categorizing our event as fun, I wasn't diving deep enough into its learning and development capabilities. So that's when we said, that's how we'll overcome that objective. Let's change and fix how we're presenting it so that when people are presenting it, it's like, whoa, this could work for this, but this also is like way more impactful than I thought it could be. I've kind of stumbled upon a gold mine.
Right. So, I mean, one of the things that you mentioned there is, you came up with they came up with this objection where they just kind of took it to Slack, right? And if we kind of put that in a sales environment, eventually overcame those objections by, figuring out a way to package the product differently so it would be
Mhm.
received differently. But if we, when I was kind of thinking about what you said, it was, that's no different than being in, they could have said, let me take it to my board. They could have said, let me take it to, the wives of the team. They could have said, they could have said anything. They just took it to Slack.
Mhm.
But if you're listening to this show, I mean, that's no different than when you get at the end of the day. I mean, how many times have we been exactly where Kevin just said? You've got this buyer and you like, oh my gosh, this is a done deal, right? And sometimes when we think it's a done deal, we actually get overconfident and we actually think that it's a done deal. So we actually start cutting corners, right?
Mhm.
Because had it not been, I mean, that was a learning opportunity for you and it led to you rebranding a little bit. But one of the things that we could take home from that today is this. I'm not saying, hey, go rebrand your whole thing, because that was a whole process that Kevin had to go through. But sometimes when you're with that sale that you just think is like, that's when you have to be on your biggest guard, because our biggest enemy sometimes is being overconfident. And maybe that's what happened to you. And they're like, well, I'm going to take this to Slack. And then when they took it to Slack, you're like, wait, this isn't exactly what I was thinking, right?
Yeah.
So it's a couple questions in there from the discovery phase.
Mhm.
And this is a take home could have been, we're having a great conversation. So tell me a little bit about how this decision is going to be made, right?
Mhm.
You could have kind of gotten that information at the beginning, or tell me a little bit about where the budget is going to come from for this event, right? So again, it goes back to asking the right questions. Now, had you done that, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Maybe you could have preempted it a little bit better, because he could have told you from the very beginning, well, we're going to take this to Slack.
Mhm.
And right there during the meeting, you would have been like, okay, how do I handle this? But it was too late when he said, probably at the end, oh, we'll let you know we're going to take this to Slack. So again, great teaching moment is you always have to be asking the right questions to avoid some of the things that, those situations where you're like, oh my gosh, this person is going to buy. And then they tell you something like, well, that was great, but let me talk to my wife, who's actually the decision makers, and I will try to explain to her the 2-hour conversation, which we just had with zero relationship. And I'm going to go up to her and say, hey, I need $10,000 for this one service that we need to buy. And she's going to say no every single time, right?
And the sentence is going to be on the email, a sentence long that's like, sorry, can't do it, got to go
Yeah,
buy.
sorry, can't do it. She said no. So again, asking the questions, and if needed, what did Kevin do? He grabbed his product and he actually rebranded it a little bit to fix some of the objections that he was getting, which is absolutely brilliant, Kevin.
And I
All
think
right.
it's less about rebranding and more about repositioning. And I think that was
Exactly.
really
Sorry.
what I wanted to do. And just one thing, it's like you learn so much more from your closed loss than you do your closed one. And so that's another thing that I was so focused on, is like, I got to get learnings from every single thing that doesn't work out for me. And it also, like, going back to what you were saying as it relates more to enterprise solution selling, B2B sales, when I was at Splash, we made the most beautiful event landing pages you'd ever seen. We could sell strictly on how cool that the branding looked and how much it could pop. And so people would be like, I love this. This is amazing. And it was as good as sold. But the moment that I started to go beyond the looks, and I said, okay, what CRM do you use? And let me try to understand what's the actual ROI that's going to be had. And that unlocked a whole new part of that selling, because I was, again, trying to make them look like rock stars and saying, okay, you might think that you came to me because you had the problem was pretty websites, but your real problem is ROI measurement. So let me understand how you're doing. Let me educate you on how the best in the world are doing it, and allowing you to go, whoa, this is way more than I thought I needed, but it's actually going to make me look great.
So that's an important skill. Like, I mean, pay attention here, because he just said something brilliant. The reason people come to you in the first place may not actually be the solution that they actually need. So someone could come to you saying, hey, I heard that you're great at, whatever, this specific software, but then you dig deep and you're like, wait, What they really need is this, and they don't even know that we offer that. So again, what you're saying is just asking better questions
Mhm.
to, like you could have someone that comes up to you and says, "Hey, we just need someone for a December 24th or a December 20th, office party." And when you dig, you're like, "Actually, no, we can do that, but really, the solution that you're looking for is something else." And you might turn a $10,000 thing into a $100,000 thing just by asking the right
Exactly.
question.
I mean, it's like, hey, you do this event, you're coming to us for that. What else do you do throughout the year? This can't be the only thing you do.
Yeah.
And then they tell you more, and you're like, well, what I have here works for this. What I have here, let me make sure that I'm going to solve your problem now, but let's discover further because this is bigger than you think.
I love it. I love it. All right. So Kevin is all about education. He's all about giving you the skills. He's all about giving you, honestly, a different solution to everyone, to a problem that everyone has, which is how do I get better? How do I get better training? How do I become a better human being? How am I happier? So he's actually created a great solution, a great space, a great parking spot. You see why him just by listening to him. I mean, this is why him. I mean, he's a pro. I don't even have to go there. So Kevin, why today? What do you want our audience? Where do you want to take them? You told me something about a newsletter, about your website. So if they want to connect with you, if they just want to hear you, if they just want to see what you guys kind of do, tell us where to go today.
Yeah, so feel free, first off, connect with me on LinkedIn. I offer any sort of coaching and, individualized services that we can do. So Kevin Hubschmann on LinkedIn is definitely where I spread a lot of that good knowledge. But we run a really fun newsletter called Laugh RX. You can find that on laughrx.laugh.events. And we got a bit of everything in there. We always try to have something that you can take away from like using comedy skills in the professional world, backed by neuroscience. That's always what we try to do. But we also give you like some fun office memes that were submitted by other businesses that we work with, as well as what I call a laugh break, which is the time for people to laugh at something funny, maybe that I saw on SNL that week that I want to share. So that newsletter is really great. So check that out, subscribe, and then yeah, if your company's ever looking for something like this, our website is laugh.events. It's the name of the company, and yeah, just feel free to submit an inquiry there.
All right, Kevin, thank you, man. You've been awesome. But again, we have another pro on the show, man. Another pro on the show with a lot of really great knowledge to share with our listeners who, I mean, you have to take, I mean, if you didn't get anything from today that you can apply today, you literally were not listening. So one of the skills that you got to do is listening. All right, Kevin. Hey, stay on so we can chat a little bit. If you want to connect with us, again, OscarSubrats.com, closingintelligence.com. Reach out to us on social media, and I'll see you next time on Ask, Don't Tell.